want to get out of here, and all you guys do. But anyway, we didn't thank everybody yesterday, but Cynthia, Selma, thanks for inviting us and having us part of this task force. It's actually been great. It's obviously great meeting all you guys and having fun. So stay in touch, all that kind of junk, and then we'll get on to our presentation. But as we do in Kings County and everywhere else, Mr. Mark Rubin, somewhere, we always thank our DA. So, as we start with every presentation, you will see Mr. Hines on the top because we work for Mr. Hines. And I do believe, quiet there, we're
Well, they work for Mr. Hines.
Yes,
I have a different boss.
Correct. But part of our collaboration, obviously, our task force was developed. We started originally, quiet here. Don't start back. With, we have a member, obviously, Hiram Bell from the courts, Penny is in our appeals, we have D community. We have all different, we had already started with Brooklyn Defender Services and Legal Aid, and everybody on board from the beginning. So as part of one of the things for everyone is going to those people to ask them, they were involved in the task force and are on our task force already. So all of the ideas that we've been developing since we started this is in collaboration with all of those people together. There is, and Kim was going to talk a little bit about some of, pitfalls, some of the issues that Brooklyn Defender Services or some of the other peoples will have about putting it into a single part. But we'll start with basic art reform and implementation. Of course, we have to always be proud of our city. So we show because, Brooklyn is Brooklyn, yes, and we'll just keep going, Kim. All right, we're calling our project Braids. For intertwining the cultures and everything else we have, we're calling it the Brooklyn Reform Alcohol Impaired Driver.
Julie, are we getting the money now?
It's a great name!
You know what he said?
Yes. This is what you working on these.
One of the things, what we were talking about here is if we actually ever did this, we would actually do a braid of different colors of countries and cultural Caribbean and American. We would have it a braid of intertwining because we do believe Brooklyn is a melting pot of all different cultures. So by making it a name that we feel is kind of not a bad name, making them go into a good program, we thought that this was kind of bringing everybody together and intertwining it, so that's why we called it Braid. Okay?
I think it's a great name, and I think it's a step above what you had when I left the room.
Bar.
It's a scary program.
That was Brooklyn or alternative.
They wanted raid.
That's not good, okay. But actually in Brooklyn, believe it or not, we have a program called DIP, which is Driver Improvement Program. So as weird as things are called, it could be yours. So, all right, that is the lovely Grand Army Plaza. If you guys have ever been to Brooklyn, it's an awesome place. So when you guys do come to Brooklyn, you've got to come around. We'll take you. This is an amazing, right around here heads to the DA's office is the beautiful Brooklyn Public Library over there. But the Grand Army Central Plaza is a major thing for Brooklyn.
Next one's my favorite.
Yeah, Ken likes this. If you ever come down to the hot dog eating contest, those are awesome. But Coney Island, these are big parts of us, and this is our cultures are made up of so many different people who live in these kind of communities, and that's what's really important for us to realize. Brooklyn is also zone prosecution. We do, where we separate our assistants by different colored zones. So Mr. Hines has always believed if the assistants got familiar with the areas and only they would know the police from that area, the culture of that area, because a lot of our assistants are from all over the country, and they come here and they have no clue what Brooklyn's about. I mean, born and raised there, we really have an understanding of the community. Most of us are all from the city and us, but a lot of our new prosecutors are not. So we're trying to get them familiar with the communities and stuff like that.
Which also helps him in terms of, not part of the DA's office. It also helps him learn the community leaders, the church leaders as well. In their zone. So that is in terms of help. I'm a long-time Brooklyn resident, so I've been in Brooklyn for 55 years. So it's, and it is. Each section of Brooklyn is very unique, in terms of we have our different Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods. We have our,
Haitian community, we have the
Caribbean community. And over the last 5 years, that has also dramatically changed because Brooklyn is becoming so developed. All the folks from Manhattan who could no longer afford to live in Manhattan or who have developed families are now coming to Brooklyn and completely changing the landscape of Brooklyn once again.
Which is important for us and to bring assistance in to understand, you're from upstate and you're coming down to Brooklyn, what it is and the culture. And this again will help with racial disparity if they can understand their communities and realize, because they have no idea. They call, I can't even explain. All right, possible explanations for some of the racial disparities that we talked about yesterday was really most of our disparities were found in misdemeanors. So some of the reasons that we looked at was some of them are that we could figure out would be statutory mandates. And what I was talking about yesterday, for us, and I don't know, I specialize in DWI obviously, so for 1192.3, as I was talking about yesterday, is when anyone blows above a .08, you're charged with that. And above a .18 is an 1192 too. Our hands are tied sometimes with these defendants, and so that's why some of, unfortunately, the disparities in the conviction rate may be somebody has a prior or they blew too high, and we can't, by law, it actually says in the statute, you are not allowed to dismiss that case or reduce it. So some of our hands are tied on that, but it may be tied with sentencing, but it's not tied to a jail term. So although we can't lower the plea, it'll still have to stay a misdemeanor. We may be able to somehow put them into a different type of treatment or alternative program. Our hands may be tied to keeping it a misdemeanor as to lowering the plea policy, but we may be able to keep them out of jail and keep that more, They're definitely, as you saw also in our PowerPoint yesterday, that more blacks and Hispanics are being incarcerated more. And that hopefully, as we talk into this, by getting them into programs and more funding, we can maybe keep them out of jail they can't afford the treatment program, so they'll take jail as an alternative, which maybe if we can get some funding, that's what we're talking about, will help them as opposed to being incarcerated. Obviously, socioeconomics plays a big part. That obviously everybody knows that in every community, especially now in times of recession, everybody's out of a job. And most of the people who drive, unfortunately, with DWI are drivers for a living. So this is really a hardship for them. And if you do take a misdemeanor conviction sometimes, and you're a young guy or you're a driver, it really ruins your career. I mean, I know that counties don't have cases that get sealed, so it really is helpful to seal a case. But it is also helpful to be able to reduce somebody's case to a traffic infraction that is not even considered a violation. So when they check applications,
Due to the crime.
Due to the crime, correct. So when they check, have you ever been convicted of a crime? They can say no, and it's a big thing for someone starting out or a family. The worst thing we want to do, and Mr. Hines has always been about that, is making someone lose their job because they have to plead to something, and that ruins us all in the end. And the hardship is just, and the cost to that is worse. Racial bias, as we talked about, is really important, and you guys use the terms intentional or unintentional, and I really think, I can't imagine, and I hope nobody does it intentionally, it's just insane to think that would happen, but I'm sure it does, and there's no way I could say it doesn't. I'm pretty sure I'm hoping it's unintentional, but it's still out there, and either way it's got to be addressed. We saw it, and we know that it's got to be changed, so. We try in DWI to look at every single case differently and every person differently. Like I talked to you about the factors of time of day, who they are, what's going on in their life. So it's a little different than assault cases and other cases because you really look at what brought the person here. So that's some of the things with racial bias, and maybe if, again, we'll talk about the training like you guys talked about the training. That will really help us, whether people are understanding in their head, did I just do that subconsciously, or am I really doing this for some other reason? And that's a big part of us. Hopefully we can do away with that once everybody understands what we're looking at and we treat everybody fairly. Some of the reforms we had talked about, and these are all contemplated because, again, the BDS, Brooklyn Defendant Service, is a little concerned that if we put, you want to say it in a better way than me? He's more diplomatic.
Obviously, not all of our cast members are here. Some of these, the reason why we say it's contemplated is because it needs the approval of the district attorney, judges, our defense bar, and obviously also with opinions and going through also with after community outreach, reaching out to communities. And I think the defense bar and also some people in the community feel that sometimes when you have specialized court parts, instead of, let's say, to put it simply, you have 30 less black people in jail, you have 30 more white people in jail. Because what happens is that on any given time, let's say you have 2,000 cases or so of D-weed, sometimes the problem is not getting individualized attention. So what happens is that they kind of cut across a broad stroke, and if each of the defendants are not looked at individually to see what kind of treatment program they really need, they say, you know what, we're just going to do this for everybody. So it winds up actually the racial disparity will not be corrected, and that's a concern on Lisa's part. And she's also
She's afraid that it will be corrected, but it'll be harsher for everyone.
right, harsher for everyone else.
That's our.
And it makes it more difficult on her part and her attorneys. We did talk to her in terms of, I think a lot of this actually falls on the fact that we're, this collaboration, if everyone has a vested interest in this, from the community, to the DA's office and the defense bar, and everyone, then then you can actually spend a little bit more time to find the right treatment program for everybody. And also, I think the judge that's involved is very, very important. If the judge is open-minded and is part of the program, believes in the program, they can work. If the judge is one of those that's kind of like, okay, got nothing else better to do, let me try this out, then it's going to be an issue.
Just let me just say, all of these are contemplated reforms. I mean, no one has, nothing's finalized, so you're at the stage where you should be. You have a proposal.
Right, we just want,
Yeah.
since Lisa's not here, if Lisa was here, her perspective would be, doesn't want it, I don't want it. Even if Lisa
Even though
tries
she is
to.
on our committee, she is not the only in terms of stakeholder.
Let me
within
explain that. She
our-
didn't say she did not want it,
Right.
Yeah,
but I had to say it on her behalf
She asked.
because she is not represented, and I want to make sure that her opinions are
Right,
stated.
Right, so this is a option
yeah.
that's out there
Correct,
right
yes.
now,
That we're
and you're gonna
discussing.
go back and work on it, fine tune it, and
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 also
maybe get
to-
a, go ahead, Myra.
And we also too will be having to expand the stakeholders because, we have two, in terms of the public defenders, we have both the Legal Aid Society as well as BDS, which is Brooklyn Defender Services. We also have 18B, and right now, there may be a fourth in terms of defense group. The city of New York, in order to try to save money, is trying to eliminate the 18B, which are private attorneys hired by the county to on conflict. They're actually talking about creating a third public defending group as a conflict attorney. So those are, again, we sort of will have to, when we do this part, expand the stakeholders and bring the other groups in.
So this is right, when we talked about if we did have a DWI part, it would be good because the collaboration between the DAs, the court, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, and the providers would all be in the one place. All the treatment program we need, and all those people would be there. We believe that obviously having people familiar with the laws, as you know, the BTL is a horribly drafted statute if anyone's ever read it. It's insane to get through it. And so to have a judge who can really understand it, understand the difference between someone holding a commercial drug, just the sanctions is very important to start all over every time. That's some of the stuff. We also hope that doing that, we'd have more programs available to incarceration. We believe it will also ensure consistency and get expedited resolutions because, as we said, these cases linger. But by having it in front of someone that we can get them in treatment quicker, hopefully it would save costs by putting the case on for 2 years and coming back and back and back. So hopefully that would be able to get them in programs a lot quicker. We also talked about training, which obviously we hopefully someone would come in with the ABA and all these kind of diversity committees. We do a train-the-trainer program where we train our own people to then go out and train each other and train the community. We definitely do a lot of community-based trainings. We attend community meetings from whatever precincts we're involved in, so we really want to get their feedback. Obviously solicit feedback, we have a draft on that. And again, the target groups for us is the community, the police, the prosecutors, judiciary, defense bar, all of that would be who we need to talk about. And again, unintentional or intentional, and explain, no offense to police, I talk to police in a lot of different ways, and they need to understand if they're going to do this, they're going to get consequences. If you're the cop that's bringing that guy in, you're not going to make those arrests anymore, and I'm going to get you off the patrol, and that's the way it's going to go. I have many issues. I have actually pulled police off, called their commanders, and said, I am not going to, you bring that guy in down with an arrest, we are not processing it. Get him off the street, I don't like his behavior, and that's the way the police have to understand. If you're going to continue this, you're not going to make money. You're not making overtime and screwing up and messing people's lives on our dollar. And this is the way you can handle it, and it's all, If you can get to the high level of police, which we have very good communication with that, they can talk to their own people and educate them. Listen, they're watching you. I'll tell them straight out, we're watching you. I'm doing a study on you guys. If I see this going on and I'm going to watch who you're picking up, you're not making arrests, and I'm not bringing your cases in. And it hopefully will get them to change. We really try and make them understand that we have the power. We have something called 343. We don't have to write that case up. We believe that they brought something in based on it. So the police have to understand that they're accountable as well. So hopefully when we train them, we can also train them on racial prejudice and bias and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm going to have to interject on the training. Because the police, the way they...
I'm talking about highway guys. I don't mean the regular PD. I have different access to highway patrol who does all the DWI stuff. I go in there at least 2-3 times a month and do trainings for every time they have a new class. I do a lot. I can't handle the whole NYPD. I meant for DWI highway patrol guys.
I mean, involving the police training, our office does a lot of interagency training. And because the way they're structured, we have to be careful in terms of sometimes we don't want to just turn them off right in the beginning. You can't go in there and say, you know what, let me give you police, your patrol, and all these people sensitivity training, because it's just going to come in.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the highway guys. We'll start with the highway guys.
But there's been recent trends concerning police misconduct and integrity, and even they're aware of it. And what happens is that we can actually train them from a trial context, starting from if you write this summons, for whatever reason, it's not backed up, it leads to all these things that can happen. And ultimately, when you get called to the stand, you're charged with perjury.
We have definitely indicted cops for perjury in our
And
county.
we have done a lot of these. And that's really actually the best approach to it, the consequences. And they understand that a lot better.
Right.
You guys want a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Real quick. Obviously, we're going to do November. We'll meet with stakeholders. We'll go through our zones. We actually kind of have thought about maybe pilot part, maybe 2 parts, doing 2 days a week, possibly putting all the DWIs in there for a few months to see how it goes and work out some pleas with them. Kept track. Keep going. Obviously, how we're going to measure our success. From 2009, when we did this study, in 2010, there was a drug treatment court started in Brooklyn. So one of the things that we did in lieu of the drug treatment court is we changed our plea policies in criminal court. So one of the things that's really great for us now is from 2009, when this study was done, we can actually run data, hopefully now, to see if our changing the policies has had any effect. Because since June, or we've had hundreds of pleas changed and lowered, because we're trying to keep people out of jail and let them take lower pleas. So hopefully we'll be able to gather the data we've had a couple of pilot parts do this so far, so we can gather the data from 2010 maybe to see if there's been any changes so far of our policy changes. And then if they are, obviously we can then implement that into a real program. And basically for us, it's Brooklyn and Believe the Hype.